the Democratic Party has done enough in the midst of this pandemic to drive up either easy balloting or ability to go to the polls?
Well, I always caution people never get on the roller coaster. We take nothing for granted, and the enthusiasm, Margaret, has been all over the country. We have a lot more work to do, but we're expanding the battlegrounds. We're competing in places like Arizona, Texas, Ohio, Iowa, Georgia, and elsewhere. And that's because we have a candidate who I think is just uniquely qualified to bring people together. We have more work to do, and folks got to get out there and vote.
Yeah, wherever that candidate is. Let's bring in Karl Rove, Fox News contributor, former senior advisor and deputy chief of staff to George W. Bush. Are you surprised, Karl, first off, that he's taking his Vice President Biden the next 5 days off? It took Saturday off, too. And the DNC chairperson coming out saying there are concerns that it's a lot closer than it appears. How do those two things gel?
Well, they don't square up. Obviously, the vice president, former vice president, is off the campaign trail because they need to sort of get him prepped for the debate on Thursday. And it says something about him that's going to take 5 days off the trail in the final 2 weeks of the campaign. Pretty amazing. Can I correct one other thing that Perez said? He said that they were playing in Texas. That's just that's not true. They're spending more money on television in Nebraska than they are in Texas. The idea that Joe Biden is competing for Texas at this date, early on they made big noises. We're going to compete for Texas. We're coming hard for Texas. We're going to buy a lot of television advertising. Seriously, they are spending more in Nebraska than they are in Texas.
There you go.
All right, what do you make of the campaign events this week? So the president's going to be today, 2 places in Arizona, 1 place in Pennsylvania on Tuesday. He's going to North Carolina Wednesday. The vice president's going to be in Maine today and Pennsylvania. Joe Biden, Kamala Harris he's taking the time off, as we just talked about. And then Kamala is Monday, Orlando and Jacksonville, Florida on Monday, today as well. But there's this memo that went out. Biden campaign manager sent this memo urging against complacency. Every indication to believe that it will come down to the wire. We're only up by 3 points in North Carolina and Arizona, she says. Do you think that, does this remind you of 2016? Who's going to win?
Well, look, we're in the final stages, and yeah, it's going to close. It's going to tighten. I think it's interesting. There was an excellent New York Times piece. I hate to say that, excellent New York Times piece, but it was about the TV buying patterns, and it shows where both campaigns are playing. And the 3 big key states are Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, and for a very obvious reason. Trump carried all 3 by 77,000 votes out of 13 million cast. He got 306 electoral votes. There were 2 faithless electors from Texas. Those boys haven't been seen since. They're still running. But he got 306. If he loses Michigan, he's at 290. If he loses Pennsylvania, he's at 270, which is what you need to win the White House. Right. If you lose Wisconsin, you're at 260 and you're no longer president. So obviously the candidates are all spending a lot of time in those 3 states, and you see it in the schedules this week. But the other thing is Biden is playing offense. He's trying to win states that Donald Trump won: Arizona, Florida, Georgia, Iowa. Maine, too. Maine and Nebraska split their electoral vote by congressional district. Trump carried Maine 2. He carried all of Nebraska, including Nebraska 2, and then North Carolina. And that's where they're trying to, the Democrats are going to try and take things away. Biden is playing defense similarly in Minnesota and New Hampshire, and Trump's playing offense in Minnesota and Nevada, 2 states that Hillary Clinton won. So if you look at the TV buying patterns, that's where they're really where the race is likely to be settled, is in both sides trying to gain an advantage, take something away from the other guy. Trump trying to make certain that he either takes something away in order to compensate for something he loses, all with the goal of getting to 270 electoral college votes.
Karl, this Hunter Biden email thing, kind of an October surprise. The director of national intelligence, John Ratcliffe, in the last half hour said that the Hunter Biden laptop emails not part of some Russian disinformation campaign, because that's what we've heard people in the mainstream media say. We've got to investigate if there are ties to Russia. He says there are not.
Yeah, this was a direct response to that great font of truth and wisdom, Adam Schiff, who over the weekend said, quote, we know, he said, that this came from Russia. No, we don't know that. In fact, Every bit of evidence suggests that this is a laptop. Yeah, the Russians several years ago thought ahead and said, let's have somebody drop off something that looks like Hunter Biden's laptop at a Delaware repair shop. Right. Let's plan that, because 2 years from now or a year and a half from now, we're going to need to have this pop up in the last month of the campaign. I don't think so, Mr. Schiff. I really don't.
Carl, real quick, 15 days. The president's going to be doing 2 and 5 events a day. What should the message be? What are the top 3 things the president should be saying?
Well, first of all, the economy and the economic recovery, and second of all, the deep contrast between these two men on things like energy and law enforcement and law and order. But look, let's step back for just a minute. You put your finger on the most important point. There are 14 days left, 15 days. Each day, the president has to, in my opinion, be able to say, this is the message I want to have today. This is the point that I want to drive home. And at the end of the day, my success is going to be evaluated by whether or not the headlines on the evening news and the headlines in the newspaper and the social media is focused on that one big contrast that I wanted to talk about today with Joe Biden. Joe Biden wants the election to be, his measure of success is, was I able to keep this on a referenda on Donald Trump's performance in office, particularly with regard to COVID, or has the media helped me by grabbing onto some comment that the president makes out on the campaign stump and doesn't pay attention to the big contrast point? Is there anything I can do to point their attention to some side issue that is not as hurtful as, say, a comparison on where we stand on taxes, or who's better to restart the economy, or do I really want to take away people's private health insurance? I mean, it's going to be an interesting battle between these two campaigns as they maneuver for message.
All right, Carl, thank you for joining us.
You bet.